right, it's saying due to a technical problem, somebody may, it doesn't look like that's happening. Okay. All right, we are recording. I'm going to call this meeting of the Health Trust Committee to order. It is a special called meeting here on Thursday, April 9th, 2020 at 3:30. We're holding this electronically due to COVID-19. I'll be processing this video afterwards, and we'll be posting it to the Lakeland School System YouTube page, and I'll send everybody a link that is interested in sharing that on your own sites. We only have one item on the agenda, but first I'm going to have Kieran, if you will, please call the member organization so we can make sure we know who's with us.
Okay.
Just the committee members can respond to this.
Arlington Community Schools.
Yes, Miracle Roberts for Arlington Community Schools.
Bartlett City Schools.
Teresa Winter for Arlington Schools.
Collierville Schools.
Cecilia Booker for Collierville Schools.
Lakeland School System.
Ted Horrell for Lakeland School System.
City of Bartlett. Is there someone representing?
Yeah, I think Dick's got to unmute, I think. I see Dick.
I'm here.
Okay.
Here.
All righty. Town of Collierville
Mark Rock, Town of Collierville.
and City of Lakeland.
Michael Walker with City of Lakeland.
All right, we are all present.
We're all present. Listen, I really appreciate everybody being here. The one item on the agenda is discussion action on plan amendment to allow virtual visits / telehealth. Is there a motion to get this on the floor?
So moved.
Okay, that was Teresa Winter. Move that. Is there a second?
Second.
Michael Walker with the second. All right, it's been properly moved. So let me explain the situation as I understand it, and you guys may know it already. And Lisa may be able to offer some insight if anybody would like to get some additional insight. I received an email from Lisa and Karen that were asking about the changes in federal law regarding the insurance coverage for employees, in this case, our employees with COVID-19. And as most of you are probably more aware, even certainly than I am, was that there were some laws saying that employees with COVID-19 needed to be treated without any cost, essentially. And it was emailed to me, is this do we want to approve this? And my response was, and I think or hope everybody knows, I try not to approve anything on behalf of the committee that I feel like warrants committee approval. My response in this case was, this is federal law, this is fast moving, go ahead and make the changes to the plan design that would keep us in compliance with federal law. And that was on an email with Frank Carney and with Lisa and with Kieran. And so we went ahead and moved on that. And as a result of that, each member organization got a plan amendment form from HealthScope, and my understanding is that everybody has signed that. So here's where I'll admit my situation. I did not see in the plan amendment that what it actually does is goes beyond the federal law. And maybe others noticed it, but I did not. And I wouldn't have been comfortable approving going beyond the federal law. And in fact, in my email responses, I'd said, let's just do what it takes to get in compliance. What the amendment actually says, in the last sentence, it says, non-COVID-19 related PCP or specialist virtual care visits are covered at the plan's regular benefit level. So basically that's new for us because our plan had not previously covered telehealth of any kind. The federal law made it clear that we should cover telehealth as it relates to COVID-19, but we had not, and HealthScope had not previously approved telehealth for anybody. And the reason this came up is Karen and I were talking, and Karen made the point that employees were asking about telehealth in the case where their doctors are not seeing patients. They're just physically not seeing patients, for regular physicians checkups. We felt like that would be an appropriate change to the plan, assuming that the regular copays applied and that we were being billed the same as previously. And what we came to find out, basically, as we were discussing this, was that essentially everybody had already approved this. So the committee had not, but each of the individual organizations signed off on that. And I wanted to make sure, A, that everybody knows what it does, and that we have gone beyond the federal law, and that our plan, as of the moment, now says that our employees can get health care via telehealth. And then B, I just decided, because this is how I like to handle the committee, I wanted to go ahead and take a vote and just make sure that we have that on record, that this is a committee decision. So Lisa, is there anything else you would like to add or correct about what I said, which would be fine?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of confusion on the issue of telehealth, and what federal law requires is that if you cover telehealth, you have to cover it at 100% for COVID testing, office visits for the purpose of having a test to see if you have COVID, or to be evaluated for the possibility of being tested. It does not require that you cover telehealth at all. It's just that if you cover it, you have to cover it at 100% for those purposes. Now, you can go beyond that and cover the treatment for COVID-19 at 100% through telehealth visits. So if somebody's diagnosed with it and they need additional telehealth visits, then you would cover those at 100%. You can even go further than that and cover telehealth visits for any purpose. And you don't have to cover those at 100% for federal law. You only would need to cover those. You could cover those with your normal cost sharing. The way the amendment read that everybody signed was that telehealth was going to be covered through June the 18th. I'm not exactly sure why House picked that date. It might have been that the original legislation, the FFCRA that instituted all these mandates, was passed on March the 18th, so they might have just gone from that date several months forward. So that's an additional question that you might want to address while you're all together, and that is that date sufficient for you? If you indeed decide to keep the telehealth benefit in place, which we do highly recommend, because in many areas that's the only way you're able to see a doctor right now. A lot of doctors' offices aren't scheduling in-person visits at all. So our recommendation for our block of business is that you cover it, and of course you cover it per the federal mandate for COVID purposes, and that you cover it for other purposes with your normal cost sharing, and that you put some kind of a time limit on it. Maybe, through June the 18th as the amendment currently reads. Maybe you extend that out another month or two. Another idea that we had was that you might want to make it effective for any periods of time during which there's a national or a state emergency, so that if this happens again with some other pandemic, or if there's a second round of COVID or something like that, you don't have to have another amendment, that you could just alert your administrator to the fact that there's a state emergency or national emergency, and you want to cover telehealth for that period of time. Both HealthScope and MedMen can administer the benefit that way. We are still waiting to hear from HCC or stop loss carrier whether they'll approve the language if we wrote it in that fashion to cover it during periods of national or state emergency.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Is there any discussion or questions or even insight? Certainly, this is obviously a a new and quickly evolving situation. So always a lot of new information. Does anybody have any thoughts or things you'd like to share regarding this?
I have a question for Lisa.
Yes.
This is Karen. Is the testing for the COVID visits, is it covered at 100%? Only the testing, or does it also imply that treatment is covered at 100%?
The way the amendment reads currently, I don't believe it will cover treatment. Let me double check on that.
It says COVID-related testing and associated office visit, emergency room visit, or urgent care visit are covered at 100% of the plan's reasonable and allowable amount with no
Yes,
cost share.
Yes, yes. And that is the federal mandate. That's the least that you would need to do if you cover the telehealth.
And then it goes on to say charges for other services associated with the COVID-19 diagnosis, including complications arising from COVID-19, are covered at 100% of the reasonable and allowable amount, regardless of provider's network participation status, and with no cost sharing to the participant.
Yeah, that's going beyond the federal mandate.
That one is going beyond the federal mandate.
Yes,
I don't know that I understood
yeah.
that.
Charges for other services associated with COVID-19 diagnosis and complications covered at 100%, regardless of a provider's. Yeah, that's going beyond the federal mandate.
Okay, that I did not understand that either.
Yeah, and I didn't see the actual amendment before it was signed. And the language, what happened was HealthScope prepared a questionnaire of sorts, and they asked clients, how do you want us to put your amendment together, essentially. And based on the answers to this questionnaire, they prepared the amendment. And the answers that were given on the questionnaire did not instruct them to include that. So unless I'm reading that amendment incorrectly, I believe they wrote it incorrectly based on what the directive was.
Okay, because there's obviously some serious implications to that
Correct.
particular decision.
Yes,
Okay.
and we would not advise that you extend 100% coverage for treatment for COVID.
Okay, so I believe at this point everybody signed that amendment, though. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Frank and Lisa, at this point, now I didn't realize that was beyond the federal mandate either. So at this point, we have a special call meeting. Our agenda item relates to telehealth. Are we comfortably in a position that within this same line item, we could, as a group, make a decision on further amending the plan design change? Frank, you're muted. Frank, you're still muted. You'll have to. There he is. Okay. All right.
So for your further design change is exactly what I was trying to follow with where you were going. I didn't see the form that you signed.
Well, it looks like the situation that we're in was we kind of circled up and again made a decision and all seemed to be on the same page that we should amend our plan design to be in compliance with federal law, but not beyond. What happened in actuality is, however it happened, HealthScope prepared an amendment that does go beyond federal law, and every member organization at this point, I believe, has signed it. So we have in effect signed an amendment saying that we are going to cover any COVID-19 related health issues at 100%. Now, what I'm hearing Lisa say is that that's not what was intended by or even indicated on the survey. So, I mean, if we have a deal where HealthScope did this incorrectly, I think we don't need a committee, in my opinion, we don't need a committee decision to correct that. So someone would need to direct HealthScope to send us corrected plan amendments that reflect what we actually desired to be on them, assuming that that premise is correct, that that's not what we indicated. But I'm not sure who. I'm not sure who filled out the survey. Was that Karen? Was that you that filled out the HealthScope survey, or was that Cheryl Morgan?
So I completed the survey, but Kathy had already filled in portions of it. And then I had forwarded it over to Lisa to review, because there is one place in one of the sections that I checked or had Lisa check, and it says access to testing via virtual care, and it says cover COVID related virtual care visits at 100%. And I was trying to see if there was something else on there, but I mean, to be honest, it's a very generic questionnaire, and it doesn't really, to me, it doesn't really state or accurately state what we signed.
Okay, and we've had a request that if folks are not talking, if you could please mute your device or phone so we can kind of cut out some extra feedback. So thank y'all. That's better already. Okay. So this is a bit of it's a fairly confusing situation here. So let me try to handle it this way. Is there a desire by the committee to cover telehealth, which we have not previously covered, with the same considerations that we would cover a normal physician's visit? I'll say I would tend to think that under the circumstances that's appropriate. To say if your doctor's not seeing patients and you need to talk to your doctor, that you could still phone in or video in to your doctor and still be charged as you would for a visit with the same copay and the same percentage of coverage. Are there objections to that thought? We'll just start there and then we'll back into what the actual plan design changed.
This would be assuming there's an end date on it, correct?
Yes, I think that's a safe assumption, yes. Does anybody else have a thought on that?
I have no objections to it. And the other question that I have is, if we're talking about covering telehealth with the same copay, why would we need an end date on that? Why wouldn't we just allow that as part of the plan?
Well, that's a different layer of the question. I think it could possibly, I think, encourage maybe additional visits that would have a financial implication to the trust, if it was just a matter of picking up the phone or logging into Zoom in a normal situation. If somebody thought they might be coming down with something, they could Zoom in and, quickly kind of make an appointment that they might not do otherwise, I guess.
Yeah, I understand that. So I guess beyond that, I would be supportive of kind of what was mentioned earlier, which is that it's worded such that in any instance of a declared emergency that telehealth is allowed. That way, if other events happen in the future, we don't have to come back and meet and amend this every time there's some unforeseen event. I kind of like that plan.
Okay.
This is Mark. Just as a comment, to our knowledge, from what we've seen so far in claims information, there is no additional expense in this situation. It's being billed pretty much at the same level, with occasionally physicians waiving the copay because it's telehealth. So we don't see it as an additional expense to be using telehealth at this time.
And Mark, these are folks that have taken advantage of this since the plan design change. Is that right?
This is not only of your plan, but it is systemic that in reality,
I see.
every plan is covering telehealth, whether they realize it or not, because they're being billed and it's being paid, and at a regular office visit price. It's kind of it's moved faster than plans can move.
Okay. All right. Okay, there doesn't, unless, and please speak up if you'd like, there doesn't seem to be an objection in principle, certainly, to the idea of covering it during, and we could either say, I don't know if we want to say during a national or local state of emergency, which might cover most situations, I would think, if there's any feedback on that. Does that seem reasonable that we would make a general plan design change that said that our plan would cover telehealth at the normal rates as an office visit during any state, local, or national state of emergency?
Makes sense.
Okay.
Yes,
All right,
I would agree with that too.
Okay. All right. There's not any objection to that. Now, the other, before we go back and try to, I think it sounds like Lisa and Karen maybe go back and try to clean up the amendment that everybody signed. I would like to ask, and I think it's appropriate under this line item or this agenda item, does everybody agree that with that exception of the telehealth, that we should not make any plan design changes beyond what the federal law requires? In other words, that it sounds like we did not intend to say we will cover any COVID-related expenses at 100%. Are we all on the same page that that's not what was intended?
Yes, I agree with that statement.
Okay. Any other thoughts or objections? Okay, so I think just as part of, thank you, Teresa, I saw that she posted there. I think what we will do then between Lisa and Karen and I is we will circle back with HealthScope, and we will request corrected plan amendments that don't include the things that we didn't mean to include. And then beyond that, I'm looking for a motion that would authorize, let's do this. I'm looking for a motion that would authorize Cheryl Morgan to develop a plan amendment with HealthScope that would cover telehealth at normal rates during any local, state, or national emergency situation.
Ted, do I need to repeat all that, or can I just say so moved?
You can say so moved. We've done it many
so
times.
Moved.
Okay. All right. We have a motion, and is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Thank you, Dick. Is there any further discussion on that issue specifically? All right. Hearing none, if those on the committee, if you could unmute for a second, the ones that vote, just hit unmute. All those in favor of the motion that authorizes Cheryl Morgan to negotiate a plan amendment that would cover telehealth at the normal rates during a state, local, or national emergency situation, please say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. All right, sounds like it passes unanimously. Is there any further discussion or action under this agenda item? Lisa, it looks like you're trying to talk possibly, but you're muted.
How's that?
That's better.
Okay, I assume that you would want us to incorporate into that amendment the federal mandate, which would be that for COVID-19 testing and related office visits, you would have to cover a telehealth visit at 100%, and also somebody was able to get an in-person office visit or urgent care visit or ER visit, and federal mandate requires that that be covered at 100% for the purpose of testing or being evaluated.
Yes, and I think we can, again, I felt comfortable as the committee chair kind of authorizing that to keep us in
Okay.
compliance with federal law. So yes, the amendment should cover only what's required by federal law, and then we are going to go beyond federal law a bit and say that telehealth is covered as we discussed.
Perfect.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well, when you record the minutes, record it as a roll call vote, because that's what the executive order required on electronic meetings. So unless somebody objects to that being a roll call vote, I'd record it that way.
Well, or would it be better to do a roll call vote, Frank?
Yeah, let's just do a roll call vote real quick.
Might as well do it right. Yep.
Yeah, thank you for noting that. I had not picked that out. Okay,
I was gonna suggest that, but.
thank you.
Arlington Community Schools,
Yes.
Marble City Schools,
Yes.
Colleyville Schools,
Yes.
Lakeland School System,
Yes.
City of Bartlett,
Yes.
Town of Colleyville,
Yes.
City of Lakeland.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passed.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you for pointing that out. All right, this is a special call meeting. We have no further business. Let me say again how much I appreciate everybody jumping up on here on short notice and trying a little differently. If there are no announcements for the good of the group, without objection, we will adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank y'all.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.